So today I'm with Emma Nyman in the Algarve, Portugal, and you're an energy healer. But what else do
Well,
you
so
do?
I
You
also
just
am
told
part
me.
of a global movement which is about supporting people to create a business online which supports their health and their wealth. It's a conscious community and it's amazing because everybody is so high vibe, they're so positive, and they're so into supporting the planet and supporting each other as well as supporting themselves. So that really ties in with me and my values, and ties in quite nicely with what you're doing as well.
Well, uncanny. Yes, because I really, you popped up in on Facebook last week, I think, and I quickly messaged you. I was like, I think we've got to talk. Um, I think we'll go back to really telling us a bit about your childhood and your journey, because we've all got here for a reason, haven't we? We've all started questioning, and yes. So if you tell
Well,
us about your
so
background.
if I look back at I have to put a caveat in that I'm ridiculously optimistic. I'm a very positive person and always have been, even when I was little. So people always used to say to me, "How was your childhood?" And I'd go, "Oh, it was amazing. I was so lucky. I had a very privileged upbringing, and I had a really happy childhood." But then when I look back on it, I go, let me actually dig into that, because my mother's been ill since I was 6, so she was never in a way that she could run around in the garden or play with me or do any of those things. Um, and then
Wow.
I was sent away to school when I was 12, which I've reframed in my mind because I thought, well, how lucky am I that I got that experience? But actually, that created a distance between me and my parents. But it's funny because I did that glossing bit with, that was such a privilege. I was so lucky. That was such a gift. But that hasn't also has an impact on you, doesn't it, as a child, because it gives you that distance. You don't get the love and nourishment that I think we all need, especially as teens. We want that hugging and that just unconditional love, which you're not going to get if you're not with people who've known you since you were tiny. I don't think. Um, so that was
Yeah.
my childhood. I lived in London for a long time, and I lived quite a fast paced life. So I was working hard and I was playing quite hard. And that came to a head because your body can't live like that. I was living on wine at night and coffee in the daytime. And I have to say, I'd eat toast for breakfast. I'd grab a slice of toast as I was running out of the door, and then I'd have a sandwich at my desk at lunchtime. You can see where this is going. Obviously, all gluten, because I don't think any of us
Mhm.
were able to get gluten-free stuff back then. So it was gluten, coffee, wine, and eventually my body just went, yeah, no, sorry, we're not doing this anymore. And I had a period of 3 months where I could feel I was going downhill, and I had lots of doctors trying to work out what was wrong with me. I finally ended up in hospital because I couldn't walk, which at the time I was finding funny because I was having to lift up. If I wanted to walk, I'd lift up. It sounds hilarious now. I'd lift up my legs to move them, and optimism to the fore. I would believe. I said to the doctors, "Well, I know you're going to sort me. I know I'm going to be better." Had all my friends going, "You're going to have MS, or you've got a brain tumor, or this, all of that stuff going on around me." But I've got, luckily, an inner resolve, I guess, from my mother, because she's such a stoic. She's gone through so much, so many health issues, and she's always like, "Well, no, I'm going to be okay." So she's beat cancer 3 times, and I think that gave me the strength to go, "Well, I know I'm going to be fine. I am going to be fine." The doctors did get me better. I could walk after a stint in hospital, but they did say, "You're going to be in and out of hospital every 6 months, probably for the rest of your life." And I said to them, and this was the killer,
Wow.
I said to my neurologist, who was amazing, he kept on saying, he said, "I'm the best neurologist for what you've got in the whole of Europe." And I'm like, "Oh, you're not arrogant at all, are you?" So then you can tell me what foods I should be eating. "Oh, foods don't have an impact on your health." And that's when I went, right,
Right.
I don't believe that, and I don't believe I'm going to be in and out of a hospital. And that started my journey onto really looking at what makes somebody healthy. So I started looking at food. I also started having acupuncture and alternative, just going down the alternative health, because I truly believed that there was a way to get me better. And I found an amazing acupuncturist who was just extraordinary. And so I was walking and I was getting back to like full Emma bit by bit by bit. And that made me really realize there is an alternative to pharmaceutical. There is natural cures are infinitely better for our health. And I think I've just built on that over the years. My husband became a health coach. I didn't meet him till quite a few years later, but he was into looking at health as well. We both had we came together through independent paths of looking at our health and trying to work it out. We went off sailing, funny story. We both have always loved sailing, and I suggested that we went off sailing for a couple of weeks in the summer with our friends because we both can captain boats. And somehow he twisted that conversation into, well, let's go off for 3 months. This was which we did as working, because he knew that you could earn really good money if you work on boats. This was in 2005, okay? So in 2005, we went off supposedly for 3 months, leaving London, leaving our jobs, our flats, blah, blah, blah. We're now 2023, we haven't gone back.
Wow.
But part of that journey
goodness.
was that it took us to, which is important, it took us to Indonesia for 4 years. And and to Bali specifically, and when you're in Bali, you have so many healing modalities around you. I think that kind of boosted the soul, the spiritual side. And it was after that I became an energy healer, because I was witnessing it and realizing that this was a thing. That doesn't really make sense because I'd experienced it in the UK, but it was just accepted as just, this is part of life. Like having massages, that's just what you do to look after your health in that part of the world. So that gave me the confidence, I suppose, to really look into that as something that I can offer, because it was just accepted as, yeah, this is the way we look after ourselves. This is the way we nurture ourselves, and preventative. It's all preventative. That part of the world, there's so much that's preventative. And I think that's a part of the reason that we ended up over there, was so that we could understand that.
Wow. Oh my goodness. What an amazing journey. Can I ask, what was your job in London?
I was working as an account director for a telecoms management consultancy, which I really enjoyed. Because telecoms back then, so we're talking in the 90s, telecoms was really dynamic, and I like things I like to be at the forefront of things. Oh, now I'm saying that to you, it kind of makes sense that I then like learning about new healing modalities or things that are maybe different, because I've always enjoyed learning about things, learning about change. I've enjoyed change, maybe that's what it is, and that's what attracted me to the telecoms industry. Yeah, so it was fun. It was fun.
So now you're healing. How does that work? Is that face to face?
Again, a funny story.
Online?
It was face to face. And I was doing a lot of hands-on stuff, especially when we were in Bali. Then we were a casualty of the lockdown, and we got stuck. We were in Europe, and we couldn't get back to Bali because obviously the world shut down. In fact, Bali didn't open until June last year. It was totally shut for a really long time.
Yeah.
So then I was going, oh, that's interesting, because everybody's over there and I'm in Europe. And there were a group of us that used to practice with each other, and somebody said, the guy who ran it said, oh, well, we can do it online. And my resistance was enormous. Like, don't be ridiculous. I have to be with people. I have to feel their energy face on face. How is that going to work when I'm on the other side of the world? All this like blah, 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 blah came through, which is funny because I'm working in the quantum, and I couldn't, the fixed beliefs were so strong that I was going, no, you have to be in front of somebody for this stuff to work. actually goes against what I practice. So it was a really funny dilemma to be in. But the
Ah.
first session that we did, I was treating somebody who was in Bali, I was in France, and she was going, "Oh my God, your energy is so strong." I was like, "Oh, okay, that works then." So now, to answer your question, that gave me the ability to realize that it doesn't matter where I am, so I do it online. And actually, now I prefer it online. So people who are here say, "Can you come and see us?" Like, do I need to? Can I just stay in my place? You can stay in your place. So it's just funny. So I have to say thanks to COVID and the
Yeah.
lockdown, because otherwise I wouldn't have understood that.
Yeah, so you do some in person but mostly online. And what does it entail? I can't imagine having a healing session online.
It entails, so it's, I have a mix of modalities. So I started off with Reiki, learned Reiki years and years ago. But I've also done craniosacral, if you've ever had craniosacral therapy. Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
and I've done angelic Reiki and various other shamanism. I've done all these things and I bring them together according to how I feel the person I'm working on, what she needs or what he needs. In a nutshell, what happens when I'm working on somebody is I drop into their energy field and I access memories through images. I'm a very visual person, so I'll suddenly start getting images which might typically relates to their childhood. Not always relates to their childhood. Sometimes it can be something that they were doing 5 minutes before talking to me. Like I had one lady who was incredibly skeptical, and the first image I got was just piles of paper, piles and piles of paper, and she was shifting them from her left to her right and putting them in the right in different piles. And I said, "Well, I'm just going to tell you what I see." And she was sitting there going, "Oh my God, I've just been sorting through all of my paperwork, putting them in files, going from my left to my right." Like, happy days. Now she believes it. So it's all
Wow.
about, because our memories are in our energy field. And if it's an emotion, and you'll know this, if we've got an emotion that's been suppressed, so we haven't allowed it go through us, and us as Brits, I think we hold on to our memories even more because, keep it in, stiff upper lip,
Yeah.
all of that sort of stuff. So those emotions, unless they're worked through and processed at that time, they cause a blockage in our energy field. And what all I'm doing is being summoned, if you like, or drawn to a particular place and seen a memory, which is in fact just blocked energy, but I just see it as pictures that are relating to that memory. And then once you brought it to conscious awareness, then we've got something that we can work with. We can reframe it, you can do whatever feels right to that person, but I've brought it up to the surface, and quite often they won't remember that particular memory. So there are so many ways of accessing people's blocked energies, and I use imaging, and sometimes I'll bring in some sound healing because I've got some tuning faults, and I might suggest oils, or I'll get hits from my guides, their guides, about food they should eat or oils they should use, or I've even had yoga positions being given to me, all sorts. It's just whatever comes through.
Wow. Wow. So you can do cranial sacral
Remotely.
from online. Yeah.
I'm not sure Upledger, who created cranial sacral, would say so, but I put my hands in the position and I feel energy. So I call it craniosacral because I'm doing what I was taught, just without the person there. I don't feel all the different energies that Upledger, who created it, talks about. I don't feel it in the same way when I'm remote, but I'm using the same access points. That's why I term it like that.
Okay. And what about your business side, the thing that you told me about at the beginning? Um,
That's
that sounds really
just amazing.
interesting.
It is. That's relatively new for me, but it's a way that people can create uncapped income, because I think we've all been brought up with the idea that you have to work 9 to 5, you can only earn a limited amount, and time with your family and time to look after your health has to be outside that 9 to 5. Frankly, that's such an old-fashioned model. It needs to be kicked out. Because what's important is our health. What's important is time with our family, to be there, unlike I was, to be there with our children for when they need us. And what we do, we're it's all tied in with high ticket affiliate marketing, but it's with a very, very conscious group of people who believe that your energy, which is why it attracts me, your energy and your thoughts are what are most important. Unless you've got those aligned, unless you're working with people who are aligned with the same values, nothing's going to work. And so that speaks to me so much, because I'm like, yes, it's all energetic. It's all energetic. Which is why you and I don't gel with people who are leading with their egos, who are all about themselves. That's the old way of doing it. It's such an old way of doing it.
Yeah. And I find that if so, so we all met in a cafe for a while, and we were sitting there saying how kind of clever it was that they banned singing, because singing raises your vibration, it brings you joy. And so we
I
started
remember that.
singing together, and all of us were like, we can't sing, we're not in choirs. So did all these voices that, and anyway, we got someone in who got us to sing these lovely sort of tribal ancestral songs, and it sounded beautiful. And even though some of the people I didn't know, I felt just connected with them. And from that, we started. Well, one of them started playing the flute, and you just think that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been together, and if we hadn't all been opening or open to ideas. If I'd have sat with another person who was at a different energy, they'd have said, "Oh, I can't sing. That's a ridiculous idea." But we all said, "Well, I'm not that great,
But
but yeah, let's give it a go."
what's really
And
interesting about that, if you look at all the indigenous tribes, they all use voice, they all chant, all sing. That's an important part of their whole way of living, isn't it? And if you look at
yeah,
is it Ayurvedic? The Ayurvedic block, they have different sounds for clearing your different chakras. Sound is so important. It's so important. It's just, but it is, sound and light, the
yeah,
two I think we're going to be hearing more and more about this. Sound and light are just different forms of energy waves, aren't they? And I think as
mm,
more goes, I don't know how high you want me to go, but as consciousness floods the planet more and more and more of these energy technologies are going to be flooding in. And I think we're going to be remembering what we used to know about using all of these things. I think it's really exciting.
yeah. It is. I know. I keep thinking it's the best time to be alive. And movement, like my daughter's doing performing arts, and it's 98% girls, probably 90, 95, 98. And I'm like, why aren't boys dancing? Because in tribes, again, the men are a lot of the ones putting on the performances. It's not just men, but it's probably both. There's not, whereas in England, it's like, oh no,
Well,
uh, can't, you can't
you
dance
look
if you're
at,
a
they made an
bloke.
entire film out of it
Um,
with Billy Elliot, didn't they? So we've
yes.
not emasculated men, but we've so put boys and men into this little thing where you can't cry and you can't dance. But now you're saying that, what came
Yeah,
to mind is you think of the Kiwi rugby, the All Blacks rugby team, who start effectively with a dance, don't they? That's not seen as weak. That's
they
seen as really
do.
strong. Isn't
Yeah.
that funny? I've never thought of that before.
No. Yeah, if the
Everybody would go,
British
"What are you
team did
doing?"
that,
But maybe
like,
that's
what
what
are
we
we
have to do for our
doing?
boys. So we introduce it as a ritualistic, like war, almost warrior dance, and then they might be interested. That's
Yes.
fascinating. Good point.
That's a It is. I know, and that's reminded me. We did a camp. I think in our second year of Joy Vision. No, it might have been the first year anyway. And one of the camps was my birthday, and I'd always had this image, of living in a tribe and this longing. And I knew that the tribe that I wanted to find, like a tribe of Vanuatu singing and dance, whatever, wasn't going to be accessible to me. Um, and But that evening, this guy, I call him like a fire artist, because he created the most amazing fire. that we all danced around, and then he got a fire stick that and we all just like basically took in turns walking around the fire with our
Amazing.
fire stick while the rest of them sang and chanted or danced. I was like, this is pretty much what I um I visioned a few
I
years ago, and
love
we're doing
that.
it in
That's
the
amazing.
UK.
And around a fire, because a fire is so important,
I
isn't
know.
it?
Yes, I know. Yeah, so oh well, how interesting. And how many businesses do you have working with you on this?
They're individuals. So
Working with
in our community, I think there's something like 3,000 different people who are all come together to
you.
try and create a ripple effect across the world. Um, it's amazing.
Brilliant.
It's what is amazing. It's a bit like what you do. It only takes one person to light the candle to create light in a dark room, doesn't it? And what I love is I'm getting goosebumps
Mm,
as I say it is how many people there are around the world who think in the same way, whose values are aligned, who know that there's more to life than 9 to 5, who want to live in a community, who want to put the planet first, who want to make serious change. And that's what I love. There are so many people around the world who want to do this. And it's so uplifting. That's why I get so passionate about it. Because I've been wanting people
yeah.
to like wake up and see that there's a different way. And I think the more we do, and the more people like you do the amazing things that you do, bringing people together and talking about it and showing them, at the end of the day, it's education, isn't it? If people can see, oh, there's a path that I can go down there, I don't know where it's going to end, but at least it's going away from the path that's going to something that was created 200 years ago, which frankly isn't working for any of us anymore.
Yeah. And how often do you meet?
We meet as a collective because it's global. We meet as a collective once a week. There's a group meeting. I don't get to it because it's at the wrong time for me. Well, I could get to it, but it's early morning. And then our slightly smaller team also meet once a week. So it's amazing. And then they have events. There was an event
Wow.
recently, but it was in the States, and I don't know. I'm not sure it's that easy for all of us to get to the States at the moment.
And how do people find out more about
If you go to
this?
my page on Facebook on Emma Nyman, you'll find, oh, hello, somebody.
Sorry. Yes. Our chef giving me a quick call. I'll phone her back in a sec. Yes, sorry. Yes,
Yeah,
go
there's
to
lots
your
of information
Facebook
on there about
page.
it all.
Okay. And so your future vision or your future role, how do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Or where do you see yourself?
Community, somewhere being involved in a community, speaking to people to help them understand a different way of living. Where it is, I don't know. And the reason I'm loath to answer that is because we've lived in 4 different countries over the last 4 years. So, because we keep moving around depending on, I don't think we would have thought we'd end up in Portugal if you'd asked me 4 years ago. I think we probably thought we'd be staying in Indonesia, but the world had different ideas. So we're over here now. If we stay in Portugal, who knows? I've got no idea. Do we end up in the UK? I don't know. We've got a teen who's quite keen on, even though she's homeschooling, she seems to have ideas about going to a college in the UK. We're both going, really? You've never gone to a traditional school. Where's this coming from? But you have to go with it, don't
Wow.
you? You have to follow their passion. So I don't
Yeah.
know. And I think the world is changing quite
Wow.
quickly as well. That who knows what it's. I can't foresee what it's going to be like even in 2 years' time. So
But in terms of the business side of things that you're doing, so I guess your vision would be to just, sort of see that treble in numbers, so that really almost everybody's got access to a business who's on their
yeah,
wavelength close
I
by, or
heard
that
somebody speaking last week who said freedom really means when manage to create freedom for everybody that you know, everybody in your community, so that if we can get everybody out of the 9 to 5 hustle, out of working for a patriarchal company, out of that corporate structure, that's my aim, long term. But that's a big ask.
Yeah. I know. And the problem is, I look at our education system and they're not teaching them to run their own business, to find what they're, I mean, some lucky children are able, or some children are lucky enough to find their passion during their school years. And I guess, I don't know why, if that's school or parenting, but most are being fed. I mean, I've come across a few people like you who went to boarding school, and that certain schools are gearing children to certain industries, aren't they? Whether it's, you've got the Harrow and Eton off to rule us little people, and then you've got the solicitors and the barristers, and then you've just got the sort of worker bees, going sat in AXA Insurance in Ipswich in a
Yeah,
big office.
I find
And you
that
just think,
really interesting. If I look back to exactly what you were saying, the career choices we were given, the options we were given, the subjects we were allowed to choose. I mean, it's ridiculous now I look back on it. They were so defined, and they only led to certain professional industries, you know. And it was only when I got out of school. I don't know how you felt. No, so I went from school and then went to university, and it was when I was in my early 20s. I was sitting there going, "Oh, I've got to decide what to do. I've spent years being institutionalized, being told, okay, you do this, and then you do this. We ask you this, you give us this answer." And if as soon as I was having to find the answers myself, I was going, "Oh, but I don't know. Nobody's telling me what to do." I literally can remember saying, "Nobody's telling me what to do. What do I do?" In my early 20s. I mean, that
yeah,
was like,
wow,
what is going on? If you can vote
yeah,
at 18, if I can make a
I
decision about
know.
who to put into government, I couldn't even govern myself.
Wow. I know you come out feeling completely. I remember my teachers at one of my schools going, "Just think for yourselves. Just think for yourselves." And I was thinking, you haven't taught us to think for ourselves. So how can we think for ourselves? And I was just in my head. I was just afraid to say to him because I was like, I literally can't. I can't work out what you're trying to tell me because my brain isn't plugged
It's
in that
crazy, isn't it?
way.
Education is
Um,
there's such an
yeah,
overhaul.
it is.
It's getting it bit by bit.
I Yeah, yes. And the more, parents that home ed, or the more, even if you do put your children in school, the more access to sort of that way of thinking that, okay, you don't have to go and get a job. You can create your own path. And I see our eldest, like, and they're all being. I went to a meeting at her college last night, and they're all being fed to go to drama school, which is costing an absolute fortune for obviously them and their parents. I think we worked out that uni and drama school cost about £85,000 by the end. I know. So that's £85,000 you come out at 22, 23, with a sort of noose around your neck. But the business will only ever allow you to earn about 16, 18 grand. If you get a great role in the theatre, it's about 28 grand, or a great role, supportive role. So you're thinking, well,
Wow.
how can you ever pay off £85,000 unless you make it really big? And I said, well, where are they saying that you have, with everything online now, you can actually create your own drama school, your own theatre company, your own dance group, and put them online and see what jobs you get.
And
But they're
it's
not
also, so
telling
there
them
are
that.
people like Michael Saylor. Do you know who I mean by Michael Saylor? So he's an American who's,
No.
oh gosh, what did he do? He set up one of the big companies that then sold out in the 90s. My husband would know. Um, I can't remember which one it was. Maybe PayPal or something. I can't remember. One of the big tech companies. But he is so into people being able to receive an education for free that he set up what he calls the Sailor Academy. It's a university education for free. Anybody can access it. At the moment, it's quite limited in what he's
Wow.
offering there. but it's not going to take many. It's not going to take too many people to be offering things like that, and all of a sudden we're going to be turning our noses up at paying 85 grand. I mean, and you're saddling them with another 5 years, if not more than, isn't it? To pay it off. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. And I also thought the other day, isn't it really unnatural? Like at an age where you are potentially drinking a lot more, coming into drugs, isn't it unnatural to be taken away from all your community who would look out for you and shoved with a love of a load of other people that are in the same boat and potentially might not have that care and compassion for you. So I kind of look at your time at uni and I'm like, thank God I'm still here because there were some times that it was pretty close. And yeah, I thought the other day a lot of children leave and they never come back, and so then the parents are left to sort of get old and then off. Anyway, that's my other, like, I go way down. I analyze everything. um, but yeah, well, that was God, free education. Yes, at uni would be amazing, and then they go into run businesses like the
Yeah,
ones
or
that
do
you've just
whatever
talked
whatever
about.
follows their passion. I think that's the really key thing, is to allow people, if you can resource people in its broadest possible sense. So if we feed them correctly, so they're healthy and they're in full health, they can shine more brightly and be themselves. Because I really believe that everybody's here with a unique talent. It might not be a huge talent. I'm not necessarily saying they're going to be starring in the West End, that kind of a talent, but everybody has something different about them. But we don't allow them, the way the system is set up is not, we don't allow them to really pursue that and find out, uncover it, and pull back the curtains so that we can actually see what their light is. And I think that's really important. If we can do that for our kids, the world would be such an amazing place in 20, 30 years' time, because all these little lights will be lighting up our world for us, doing what it is that's important to them. Because it's so important, but we have to give them the ability,
Exactly.
the space, and the health to do that. And that's not going to be filling them through
Yeah.
with processed or GMO food, is it? That's the
No.
other thing. I
Yeah.
was listening to, sorry, you were going to say something, but the other thing I was listening to yesterday is how processed food has a low frequency. A lot of the food that we eat has low frequency, as does tap water, because as I'm sure you know, tap water is filled with chlorine and fluorine, and don't get me started on what those do to your brains and everything.
Yeah.
But that is dropping your frequency, is dropping your vibration, so that then you're not able to access the inspiration that might be coming through to you, because your body's operating somewhere down here where actually naturally it should be up here. So there's so much. People think by eating cleanly, I'm looking after my body, but it's more than that. It's way bigger than that. By eating cleanly, you're allowing yourself to drop into your true frequency, which enables you to find the frequency that's going to light up you, which makes you stand as your true self. So by eating cleanly, you're effectively looking after your soul's purpose.
Yeah, I like that. And you really feel it, don't you? Like now when I have a drink, I feel like, my brain can't. I stopped drinking for about over a year and I was functioning so well. I was like, wow. And gradually I have a little bit now. I don't binge drink like I used to in my past. And I just think but now sometimes but the converse thing about alcohol, I did read an article that this guy said he was worried that young people aren't drinking like they used to, because he said you actually, by being in a circle of people and having a couple of drinks, you open sort of conversation and you get creative.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting. So sometimes I use I have a drink just because I've like hit a wall and then I kind of need a reset, which I'm not saying is a good thing. I'm not, I wrestle with this, but of course we run a pub now and I actually have gone from thinking we shouldn't have alcohol in our system to actually seeing that there's a something that's generated with a group of people sitting in a pub and having a drink together. They don't go off and get smashed. They're just sitting and exchanging. And maybe that's all about the energy being raised. Um, but that's the detraction of processed foods. But yes, in the terms of the food that we're bringing at the pub, everything is clean, because it's just what you said. Yeah, if you feed yourself junk food, you'll have that brain fog. Um, yeah. Oh well, thank you. Anyway, yes, so it's Emma Nyman on Facebook, and so people can contact you about healing sessions or about the online business opportunity that you're sharing as well. Well, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you.
Lovely
Always
talking
a
to you.
pleasure. I love talking about this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's lovely. All
And you,
right.
thanks.
Have a lovely
Bye.
day. Bye. Bye. Mm.